I honestly wish that following Jesus was fluffy puppies and unicorns all the time. I really do, but it's not. And frankly, it does get kind of hard sometimes. Those of you that have been walking faithfully with the Lord for years, you understand that. If you're maybe new in your faith, maybe you're learning that. But I think one of the things I've had to really come to grips with and understand is just how hard it is to walk with Jesus sometimes. And that's where I want to start out with today, because even the people in this book, as much as we exonerate them and we elevate them, sometimes it was hard for them to follow Jesus. It was hard for them to understand Jesus. It was hard for them to walk this thing out all the time. We liken them to like superheroes of the faith, but in reality, they had their struggles just like you and I do. And one of those struggles we're going to look at today, I call it the expectation gap. The expectation gap, where what you expect and what you experience, there's a gap there, there's a difference. And in that gap lies disappointment. Sometimes it's disappointment in situations, sometimes it's disappointment in people, but there's disappointment between what you expect and what you experience. And we're going to look at one of the people in that is John the Baptist. If you remember just a few chapters ago, John the Baptist is the one that baptized Jesus. He's the one that was like, behold, the Lamb of God. I'm not worthy to untie that guy's shoes. Like, that is the Messiah. He is the one. Like, John the Baptist is essentially Elijah kind of reincarnate, I guess. Not reincarnate's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Like, he was the forerunner for Jesus. He was like the first prophet to really say, that's him, that's the guy. But yet we're going to see a very different story here. As we pick up the story in Luke 7, Jesus just raised this widow's son. The world's losing their dang minds. Like, it's crazy town. Like, Jesus just did this. So what has happened, a little backstory, is, see, John the Baptist was a pretty solid dude. Like, he was hardcore. He's going to say things that no one else is going to say. And essentially, he calls out Herod for sleeping with his brother's wife and stealing her. And so Herod was really kind of a thorn in John the Baptist was kind of a thorn in Herod's side. And so John the Baptist was always like kind of poking at him. And so Herod's wife hated him, had him put in jail. And so essentially that's where we find ourselves. John the Baptist locked up. He's in the pen, right? He's in jail. And so he's hearing about all these things that Jesus is doing. Now, let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago, John the Baptist was like, behold, this is the Lamb of God. This guy's the one. But here's where we pick up the story. The disciples of John, so John's boys, reported all these things, all that they're seeing Jesus do. And John, calling two of his disciples to him, sent them to the Lord. So he sent his boys to the Lord, that says, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? Boy, that's a change of pace, right? Wasn't but a few chapters before, it was behold the Lamb of God, to now, are you the one? John's walking through an expectation gap. What he experienced and what he's expecting aren't the same thing. You see, John's in jail. And John thinks that Jesus should be busting him out of jail. Like, I'm your boy. You should be setting me free. You're doing all these other things for everybody else. Meanwhile, I'm sitting at the table empty-handed. You're not busting me out of jail. Now, essentially, Jesus is going to later on quote Isaiah, and there's some prophecy around this whole situation. But the point that I want to make today is John the Baptist, who is as bold and faithful as they come, has doubts. And we see in this moment a moment of doubting the messiahship of Jesus. He's doubting who God says he is. Everybody else is seeing the abundance except for him. And so, what is that for you? Where are you doubting? Are you in a season of doubting? And I'm here to tell you it's okay. It's okay, because if John the Baptist can have his doubts, if Peter can have his doubts, if John can have his doubts, if all of these people around Jesus can have their doubts, guess what? So can you. And it's okay, because you know what? God can meet you right in the midst of your doubts. So if I could encourage you today, where are you doubting God's faithfulness? Where are you doubting his goodness? And how can you take that doubt and say, God, here's where it is, man. Meet me in this place. And you know what? I know he will. I promise you he will. I promise with all I have. And so, man, jump in, read it for yourself. I'm not just feeding words. Get in this book for yourself. But hey, you know what? Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I just want to close with this. Thank you. Every time you watch a video, every time you say a prayer or give $1, any of that, man, it matters so much. There's so many lives that are being impacted by this ministry, and they can only be impacted because of your support. And so thank you for just being a part of this with us. Anyway, y'all, I hope you have a great Wednesday. We'll see you back next week.